get you one. Okay.
I have 4:45, and we will reconvene out of exec session. And with that, is there any business taken care of that we did present?
As a matter of fact, there is. Mr. Mayor, I would like to appoint Tom Howe to the P&Z board. Thank you.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you. All right. With that, that takes us to item number 7, public comment. Comments from interested citizens. Gretchen.
Mayor, I believe we have several WT students with us today, so maybe they want to speak.
That'd be awesome. Way to put them on the spot.
Well, are you asking to speak, Gretchen? Is that what you're doing?
I don't know that they want to know, looking at everybody.
We're doing a local government project, and so our teacher has signed us to come and be in attendance here and just to serve one of y'all's meetings.
We'll tell Dave Rouse hello.
I think that means they don't want to speak.
Well, welcome.
Other than that, no one has signed in, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, that then takes us to item number 8, to consider and take appropriate action on development agreement for extraterritorial jurisdiction development between City of Kenyon and property owner Alan Anderson Homes, LLC, known as Stone Creek. Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have been working on this with GDI and Chris Reinhardt, Reinhardt Roofing, as several of you all know, working on this subdivision. Very nice, over west of White Fence Road, north of Country Club Drive, Country Club Road, sorry, too many country clubs. About 26 lots. It's kind of in a little bit of a geographic canyon. There's about 81 acres. A lot of the acreage is not buildable. It will be a curb gutter lot. Thank you, Gretchen. So there's what it looks like. There will be a 2-phase development. They'll do one of the streets first on the east or west, whatever they choose, and ultimately should be more probably high-end houses. Dustin is here if he would like to say anything. But Dustin, you have anything to add?
I'm going to say on your agenda item, on the it says 1 phase, but it's actually 2 phases.
Yeah.
It's the only thing I see that's different.
Yeah, there's 2. They're going to be doing this in 2 phases right here. So if I can see the small map on the upper side, you can kind of see where it's at. Other than that, a few minor subdivision waivers. The cul-de-sac length exceeds our current lengths and block lengths. The development review team approved that. It's a very common minor waiver. Ultimately, that's for fire safety purposes is why those are that way. But other than that, not a whole lot to add to this. I think we're all ready to get started and move this one forward. So we will be providing inspection services on this project. It's one of the first ones we will be doing it on.
We don't need to probably muddy the water, but just wondering, more rural subdivision, the 37-foot wide streets. I know just some conversation earlier
we talked about that, and they didn't really have any issue with it at all. Yeah, not a whole lot of comments from them. Dan's been working pretty hard of having good communication with Tim Soils over there on that. You know, we always send our comments to them and all that. Dan, I don't think we heard really much from them at all, so. It is in their technical specs to have curb and gutter sections.
I have had correspondence with Tim, but on another development.
Didn't seem to be much, and so I've sent the development agreement to county judge, their precinct commissioner, and their attorney. And so I've been sending these ETJ developments to them and trying to have good communication, but not a whole lot of comments back. This is a fairly small one too. It's not very big. I think the biggest conversation we had is, I can't remember if we decided on the right-of-way, that they do have a requirement on section line roads to have a certain amount of right-of-way. I think we came to agreement with Tim on that, an additional 10 feet, I think, Dustin, or so.
And that was on Country Club itself.
Country Club
not
itself.
inside the subdivision.
Right. So Country Club itself is a section line road, and for, I guess, future expansion of that road, which is weird because, you know, it kind of ends right there at White Fence. It's not really a traditional section line road like the other side of Country Club. I think they wanted 10 to 20 extra feet. Dustin, is that what we
Yeah,
came to?
I think it was 10 feet.
10 feet extra. The developer and engineer didn't have any issues with that. I think that was good deal with our comments.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt the ETJ development agreement for Stone Creek subdivision.
Have a motion and a second to adopt the ETJ development agreement. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passed. All right, thank you. Taking to item number 9, to consider and take appropriate action on ordinance number 1140, lowering the speed limit along Martin Market 2590, and ordinance of the City of Canyon, Texas, amending 71.30 A2D of the traffic code to provide for a prima facie speed limits established for motor vehicles within corporate city limits of the City of Canyon as provided in this ordinance, providing for a penalty and an effective date. Dan.
Thank you, Mayor. Good old FM 2590. Everybody's been kind of looking and holding their breath as to what's going to happen out there with all the development going on anyway. So the transportation code requires TxDOT to do an actual traffic speed study on any of their roads that they have requests for changes in the speed limit. And I think Canyon ISD was kind of the main player in this, as far as with the development of the new school out there, out that way, and all the other development going on. That CISD was pretty much all in on getting with TxDOT and requesting, you know, they have a study and reducing the speed limit along 2590. If y'all been out there, you probably noticed the signage hasn't been changed yet. Two things are happening. They're waiting on this body to do this tonight, and then their traffic division is kind of behind. They do all the signage and stuff. So I tried to get a hold of their engineer last week, and I have yet to hear back from them to see if there's any updates on the signage moving. I bet as soon as they find out that, hopefully you guys act on this tonight, that they'll probably speed up their process and get the signage changed. We can't enforce anything until the signage is changed anyway. So, this is actually the first one of these traffic studies that I've seen. I wanted y'all to see it. I put it in the packet. It's really an interesting document. If you notice, the little boxes on the top and bottom, those little three-way boxes, I thought that was very interesting, because what that indicates, everything above the center line is northbound traffic, and everything on the other side is southbound traffic. And what those three boxes are, the top box is the 85th percentile speed, the middle box is the maximum speed that they observe, and then the bottom box is the number of cars that they observe. So I thought it was very interesting to see kind of what the 85th percentile speeds were out there. And they have when they do this study, they have an algorithm and stuff that they go through to calculate what the speed limit ought to be. So I thought that very interesting. If you notice there's one spot on there like, well, it's just south of 2219. I bet it's where it goes down in that low spot there at Spring Draw. He observed somebody going 80 miles an hour. You know, I found that pretty interesting. And the maximum speeds along there are really kind of dangerous. If you look at them all up and down the thing, they're anywhere from...
Dan, it sounds like you're going too fast in your truck.
I am. No, I found that very interesting. And I know this thing's kind of hard to read, but if you notice, they pick up every driveway, every culvert, every creek crossing. And I just found this rather fascinating, the way they do this. And then the bottom line is this line right here. They show what the existing speed limit is and then what they're proposing right below it. So the first page is basically at the north end at the loop on the left-hand side. And that first half mile south of the loop, they want to drop that from 60 to 50. And then for the next, almost 11 miles, I guess it is, from that point all the way to Hunsley Road, basically, they want it to be 55. And then, if y'all have ever noticed, there's a sign basically just north of Hunsley Road where this is now. 55, they want that to go from 55 to 50. So, that's basically the speed study in a nutshell and what we're talking about doing. And it's, like I said, it's more of a text dot control thing, but they still need us to adopt this to change the limits within our corporate limits. So we'd recommend y'all adopt that ordinance, please.
Second.
Have a motion second to adopt the ordinance. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. Those like sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Dan. That was exciting to get done. All right. Item number 10, consider and take appropriate action on the City of Canyon Comprehensive Plan Implementation Matrix Annual Report. Dan?
It's kind of a team effort between John and I. John took the lead on this process. You guys remember back in 18, actually adopted back in 19, that comprehensive plan. And you guys remember back in the 96 plan, I mean, I know it collected dust on my shelves for years. So this 2018 plan, with this matrix and an effort to keep that in front of us, John are going to present this annual update on where we're at on some metrics and where we stand with several of those recommendations, all those recommendations, where we stand. Are we still working on what have we completed? And you'll notice as we get closer to completing this zoning ordinance and the subdivision ordinance, and so many things with the downtown master plan and talking about some more strategic planners, so many things we're working on right now. Once those things are put into effect and adopted, it's going to check a lot of boxes on this matrix. I think we'll be pretty well right on course. I think John would agree that it would be time to really look comprehensive plan and at that 5-year time and start looking at revising that completely. So we're going to check a lot of boxes when we complete that, as you can see, particularly with the subdivision ordinance and the zoning ordinance. Just looking at the matrix in Chapter 3, you guys have that in front of you. Chapter 3, Section 1 talks about updating the zoning and subdivision ordinances. Both those items address that. Review those updates and address it and talk about it with you guys and update those zoning and subdivision regulations. And we're hoping to have those, they're in process, and hope to have those finished this fiscal year. So I think we're really close. I'm not pointing fingers, but there's several members of our DRT that need to get the comments back to me. And I think we'll have it all ready to present to you guys. So
We're getting there.
We're getting there. Joe says he has his marked up. It's been a lot of work, and it's really been very interesting. A lot of teamwork with this team. Craig and Chris have been involved, and Dan and Oppo.
Probably 200 to 300 hours of staff time.
A lot
At
of
least.
time. A lot of time. Flies.
I slept many nights reading and working on those.
I'm sure you did. like to see. Item 2, promote and develop the key gateways and nodes for residential development. Talks about recommending node development patterns for those intersections at FM, which is Hunsley Road and I-27, 4th Avenue and I-27, and areas north of Country Club Road. Talk about node developments, you know, as areas develop, those areas will have residential as well as some commercial developments. So you can live and rather than going to town, as we call it, you've got those stores and retail developments close by, so you can exist in your neighborhood. And hopefully we do that. We try to do that. Most of the things as we plat them and zone them, those developers want with Spring Canyon, with Canyon East, there's some retail or commercial zoning out there. And like I say, convenience stores and banks, things like that. That's what that's about. That's ongoing and working on it. I think it's working to reach that end. Talk about updating the zoning regulations for higher standards for non-residential and residential use of retail and commercial developments. That'll be addressed with our zoning ordinance. We're going to have a lot of new ideas for buffering, for landscaping and things like that. That'll be processed and addressed hopefully with our zoning ordinance that's approved.
Section 3 and 4 there. Section 3 kind of talks about creating gathering and venue places. That's something we always see for families. You know, people want to do those kind of things. Those are the kind of things that you don't really start there. It's not like we go out and recruit a bowling alley or go out and recruit a movie theater. When you cross certain thresholds, those people are interested in you and they'll be here. However, if those businesses come forward to have one, then we'll certainly be reaching out to them and encourage them to be involved. Downtown Master Plan talks, that committee's talking about venues downtown, things to do downtown, whether that be family oriented or whatever that looks like, music, something. So those things are going on. You're going to see several things on here that we state are ongoing, because those are things that you never finish. You know, you're always going to be recruiting a business. You're always going to be doing that, so we can't just say we've accomplished that. So there's some things that will never be completed there. Moving on down to focus on key non-residential efforts around the prominent thoroughfares and intersections, number 5 there, including 23rd and 4th. Well, I think we're starting to see some things happen on those intersections. So we hope that in the future they'll start to change. You know, a lot of that is up to those individuals that live on the property in those corners. And as they decide to do something there, or maybe we can incentivize that, or
We're working on economic development with the restaurant and zoning board of adjustment, waive parking restrictions.
so we hope to
That's one of those efforts.
get something to happen there. Danny, floodplains, number 6.
We last adopted our floodplain ordinance back in 2009. We were one of the first areas to receive those digital maps, and so a large part of that's been done. We are working with a regional floodplain group, which has been developed at the state level. Our regional floodplain group is chaired by Floyd Hartman, vice chairs Joe Shane, and they meet monthly, I think, and I sit in on those meetings, and that's going to help us a lot with some of this. Once that regional floodplain comes through, that's going to help a lot with that. Also working on our hazard mitigation grant with Freeze and Nichols. I think that's going to address some things that we should probably include in our ordinance moving forward.
Number 7, we talked about, it's been mentioned in here, our city managers brought it up there. We're interested in possibly a police station down the road. And so working for continuing the growth of our area here, as far as our offices and expanding that, developing the property north to the City Hall, signage, things like that, to create an area here, not just some buildings, but an area where people know that that's the civic complex, moving in that direction. Promote rural land use that will serve limited or no city services. Again, we're looking at with our draft subdivision ordinances. We've looked at some rural type subdivisions. What does that look like? What would we require there? What would we not require there? How would that be any different than anywhere else? you'll see that as we come forward with those subdivisions. Budgeting for sidewalks and drainage on downtown, the downtown master plan is looking at all of that. Our goal is to have a CIP, a list of projects, sequenced, and a estimated cost for all those projects for what we need to do downtown on the square. We don't want to spend any money right now. We'd hate to go put in a brand new sidewalk somewhere, and then in 4 years we're taking that out because it didn't match the street any longer, because the street has changed or the curve has changed. So as we get that plan, you're going to see some really big numbers, but then it'll be our job to try to help you all figure out how we can move down the road and get those things done. Andy, number 10.
Promote low-density residential development, ETJ. We talked about adopting ordinance requiring annexation for receiving water and wastewater service. That's a policy now that will be included, worked through in the next subdivision ordinance. Through the subdivision regulations require the same level of standards in the ETJ that are required in the city. We actually completed that item back with ordinance number 1100 in 2018. That ordinance was adopted, so those requirements are in the ETJ as within the city of Canyon. Study feasibility to annexing some of the recommended growth areas in the next 5 years. Nowadays, we're looking at completely voluntary annexation. House Bill 347 largely prohibited any involuntary annexation. In the city of Canyon, to my knowledge, hasn't done any of that. But we're continuing to reach out and work with developers to annex areas. They see fit. It's always a priority for us to do that. And we will continue to work on doing that within the confines of the law. Expand light industrial uses along Highway 60. CEDC does own some property along Highway 60, and I think it's currently zoned RC2. There's a lot of property out there on Highway 60 out west that is zoned industrial. I think the plan at this point to see the rest of that property moving further east, particularly talking about some of the CEDC property, seeing what developers come in and what their ideas. She's always talking to folks about some property there. It may be industrial, it may be something else. As far as working with the CEDC to promote these areas for future uses, nothing's really any clear incentives like reduced wage or development fees. Not a lot of talks going on with that. However, a lot of that could be addressed through particularly weight fees, through development agreements, I think, as those come along. And we're always talking about how we're going to incentivize things. But nothing's actually started, but that's always on the table. Chapter 4, transportation. Update and streamline thoroughfare documents. We really don't have a thoroughfare plan in the city of Canyon, but that thoroughfare plan is going to be adopted as part of the subdivision ordinance. I think it will also be addressed through a lot of the CIP. And Dan is a part of the MPO, correct, Dan? Mm-hmm. And they're working on an Emerald Area Multiple Plan. So I think a lot of that will be a lot of these items in item number 1 will be addressed through the subdivision ordinance, the MPO, and thoroughfare plan as well as CIP.
We put a little bit in our subdivision rates.
Correct.
On classification.
And that thoroughfare plan will go hand in hand. There's several documents with that subdivision ordinance. John?
Got to continue to address traffic and transportation issues within the city. Brick Street's always a concept, a thing we need to look at, an issue for us. A downtown master plan, there'll be some ideas coming out of that, which are going to attempt to address certainly downtown and down 15th Street, which would include some brick streets there. And I'd also ask that our consultants provide us with some ideas for the other 41 blocks, but whatever 28 blocks are outside of the downtown master area, what are their suggestions for those? And we've actually, they're going to look at some cost figures for theirs, and actually got something just this weekend from our consultants, which talks about some costs from San Angelo for the removal of bricks and the changing of the street and those type of things. 23rd Street and 4th, initiate traffic operations study where we're looking at, you know, the MPO will probably be looking at those kind of things, and our thoroughfare plan will help us make some decision there. Bike lanes, we're looking at bike lanes through the downtown plan, a way to get to the square. Also, we have a basic outline of bike routes, safe bike routes, or safer bike routes to get to all of our parks. At this point in time, we haven't really put that out, but we have that. And we also
coordinate that with the on to the square.
Our consultant is, we've looked at, you know, the only places you can cross is, you know, you want to cross at a stoplight, so you're crossing at Second probably. Fourth is not a good place to cross, but Second's a good place to cross. And then bring you over, go down Second. Second's nice and wide once you get by McDonald's there, and then bring you over to Third, and then you're here. It's a real direct route, and those are really the best places.
So timing-wise on that, how long would it take to get that done?
To get what done?
Like that route to the square?
Right now, Gary, what we've looked at is just making them bike-friendly routes. We have not looked at creating, like on the spur. That has not been looked at all.
Oh, I was, you know, the one get to downtown campus is one we talked about for quite some time. I
Right.
was just wondering.
We have not looked at creating bike lanes at all. We've looked at just making safe routes, encouraging people to go as the streets as they are on those and traveling those routes. Because we'd be looking at removing parking from those streets in order to do that. And we haven't really crossed that yet. Let's see what else. So those are textile roadways, incorporate complete streets. Complete streets would be where you turn a street like we're talking about now, where you would create some bike lanes, or you would create a median. You would complete the whole street. It's not just a street. There's more to a street than that. We're in process with our subdivision ordinances. We'll discuss that. The downtown master plan is going to discuss that. We've already seen pictures from the MPO for their plan, which looks at Ford. And then we will also see that in 2 years, right, Joe? With the Sidewalk Project on 23rd. Is that 23? When TxDOT's going to run the sidewalk down 23rd, similar to what they did on
South of
4th.
South of 4th, yeah, I think that's right.
Just like 4th. So we're excited about that. Something that they're going to come in and do along the highway there. Danny, I guess utilities and infrastructure.
Do it really quick. Chapter 5, utilities and infrastructure. Review all utility plans each time the future land use plan is updated. Make updates as needed. We really focus on that future use plan more and more nowadays. As we look at, as we talked about developing out east, you know, we really try to focus more and more on that future use plan. We're always involving these guys on what our utilities look like, and they're making plans for that as always.
We've authorized engineer to update our utility maps on top of it, and local control network.
That we really keep with P&Z whenever we talk about any kind of development, where we've got that future use plan, recommended use plans in front of us now, so all those will be used extensively and help greatly with the utility planning. John?
Sorry, where'd you go?
We're in section 2, formula.
I'll take the CIP. CIP, we have issued some CIP instructions and forms to department heads. It's time for me to follow back up and see where people are on that, because our goal is we're in the strategic plan right now, but we need to be doing the CIP on the side when we have time, because the CIP projects need to be coming in. We would like to, in December, January, be looking at those projects and trying to rank those projects as administrators, trying to decide where we want to go. So we feel really good about that. We thank you all for giving us the authorization to move forward with that CIP, which we talked about, and we kind of looked at those forms this summer, I guess, when we were looking at those. So that's an exciting thing, and I think that through our strategic plan, as y'all meet with Lyle and Zoom with Lyle as individuals, hopefully you'll be talking a little bit about projects that you want to see happen, and he'll be putting those things together for us to talk about as potential CIP projects. consider the feasibility of the impact fee program to fund future infrastructure. Again, in our subdivision ordinances, we're looking at that first thing, review state regarding the impact fees. So we've looked at some of those type of things. We've talked with you all about impact fees. Our downtown master plan is going to suggest that impact fees are options for ways to fund things. And we're looking at currently, as you well know, we're looking at a study from Freese and Nichols to help us determine ways to fund future growth. And one of those ways of funding that would be impact fees or developers agreements and lots of other options. But they're going to come forward with some of those options. Number 4, the development asset management plan.
Actually had a person in the budget trying to do that this year.
And
Did not make it.
that's something Joe is really pushing us on, is that asset management. As a way for us to, and when we talk about asset management, that's knowing where we are in our streets and our water and our sewer. Us having the ability to say, we can see on this line that we've repaired this line 10 times in the last 4 years, that we've done this here. A way to track all those things so that Chris and Dan can then look forward and say, look, it's obvious that this line is our biggest issue. This is the one we need to replace. So we're not making random decisions. We're finding out where the problems are, we're investing in those. There are other aspects of the asset management plan, Joe.
Yeah, and waste, like John said, mostly, stormwater's in there too, all sorts of utilities, but ultimately, having a good process on the ground to replace our antiquated infrastructure. Eric has been great to try to work and trying to get rid of some of our 2-inch line. He and Dan are working really hard on that. That's where our CDBG project we've got in right now is doing that, but I think we're trying to take that to the next level, and we're working with our city engineer on some of that aspect too, to have their input. But ultimately, I would like to see, I had a position in the budget this year that was unfunded, that would be an on-staff person that would handle asset management for us with all utilities, water, wastewater, road, everything, but also manage development projects that are our capital infrastructure, but also managing our in-house capital infrastructure. So they would do both. They would do basically, honestly like an on-staff construction manager, but also asset manager as well to help that. So we're trying to get better in that aspect to make better decisions for our investments.
Chapter 6, again, we're talking about public facilities there. Again, working on, it's always ongoing, what do we need? And our space study that we did, I guess, 8 years ago now, or 6 years ago, gave us an idea of what we could do in this facility and with the police station. So we're moving forward with that. We've got Chief Rush is looking at what some of our old plans already, and we're talking about those things. And I would hope that we're working on a RFP for some services down the road to help us dive into that and see where we need it, and so for a possible bond election down the road to help us with the space here. So the police department maintain high quality standards, again, just taking care of what we have. Coordinating with the Ramsey County Courthouse for the future of the courthouse. You know, we say not started, but we have those conversations every day. We had those conversations last week. When we went over to talk about the tiers with the county, we talked about the courthouse. When we have our downtown master plan meetings, we're talking about the courthouse. So I think everyone continues to have the courthouse on their mind. Where we land I think is still an unknown, but as long as we're talking about it, it's not falling off the table. And I think everyone knows that something will happen there sooner or later. Danny, Chapter 7.
Protect existing neighborhoods, develop some infill standards that protect the look and feel of the existing neighborhoods. That's something we're going to be very important and key in the zoning ordinance that's in progress, and as well as adjacency standards with these commercial developments. We all think about the little development over there, 38th and 4th Avenue. It's going to provide some clearer buffering requirements with adjacency standards to separate those commercial from the single-family districts. Encouraging housing maintenance strategies, neighborhood associations, And that kind of goes with item number 3, implement some home maintenance strategies. Talked about with Lyle this morning. Nothing we've made a lot of movement on, but something that's really key in my interest. And Lyle has some really great ideas, but there's some areas in town that need some help with some home maintenance strategies and some redevelopment in some of those areas would be fantastic. Not a lot of action so far, but that's something that's on the radar. Back up to number 2, implement proactive code enforcement. We still try to communicate through our social media, and Megan's helping with that a lot, and I think we're getting better at that. We have purchased and are implementing a MyGov software. I don't know if Paul's had any deals with this or not, but this MyGov software is a really great tool, something they had in order, where it's a portal where they can submit plans, they can see where their inspections stand, they can request inspections. The inspectors, it's a great field tool. They can resolve their inspections and even work code enforcement cases completely from the field. Now, hoping it's working out well. Craig's nodding his head, so I'm getting a positive response. That's good. Let's see. Adopt, next page on item number 4, adopt updated guidelines for new single-family homes. Review the residential portion of zoning ordinance and identify any deficiencies, and that's going to be all addressed in the section through our zoning ordinance, as well as creating residential categories that will allow for development with a variety of different sizes and housing types. We're going to have several more categories in zoning districts than what we had in the past. I think you have to be pleased when you see that. Promote higher density areas along Valley View Road and Highway 60. It's going to be kind of a reactive, I think, response to upcoming development. I think that's a good area for some higher density areas. And we had some. Of course, we had some of the apartment buildings going up over there. Item 7, create and develop a guidebook with pictures. That's something we've taken no action on. We need to work on. Work with Megan on that. Chapter 8, update the zoning and subdivision regulations. Again, so much of this is in process with the land use compatibilities, the facades, the screening for waste receptacles. There's going to be some modifications to the landscaping and the recommended plant list. The dead tree, we've talked about that a lot. I think it's necessary. I think it's a good idea. I think Dan and Sepco really love that idea. I think a lot of us do. We've got a lot from the drought. We've got some issues. No action been taken, but
Dead trees and brick streets.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Good show.
Of course, 2, that's John, that's you.
Parkland dedication ordinance, something we'd like to see. I think you'll probably be seeing something in the next couple of 3 years from us about a park study. I did a basic study quite some time ago, but it's aged out as far as the information I had from the residents. But we'll be doing that, and with that parkland dedication, we'd talk about as I develop a neighborhood, then I'm responsible for providing X number of acres based on the X number of individuals that live in that neighborhood, and I would also be responsible for assisting in the purchasing of equipment for that park. However, if I develop a park, let's say if I develop the acreage right next to Connor Park, there's already a park there, so I wouldn't be required to provide any more land. I might help improve Connor Park as opposed to creating a new one. Dead tree removal, implementation community branding. That get us through it there? I think it does. There are 16 items on here that are associated with the subdivision ordinances. So it's going to...
Why are you looking directly at me in the eyes?
No, it's just all of us. I mean, it's going to... So 4 of these pages are gone at that point in time and completed. And we think that's super important, and we know that the next time we come to you, that's done. Now, it may still be in a review stage because we're not going to create this ordinance and subdivision regulations and throw it out there and say, hey guys, here's the new rules, because that won't work. What we'll do is we'll take that to people that'll be using that, developers, builders. They'll have a chance to look at that, discuss that with us, then it'll move forward to our staff, then it'll move forward to Freedom Vehicles to be completed. And, you know, again, as Danny said, there are a lot of boxes here, but we continually look at this and get them checked off, and it will be maybe 3 years we'll be saying we'd like to have an update, and that's where you don't have to do the whole plan again, but we'll get the consultants to help us to say, okay, what's next? You know, and I think that you all should take pride in that, and you've enabled us to develop this, which we consider a guidebook, and we're just working toward doing those things that you've told us are important, and our citizens have said are important.
Well done, you guys.
Anybody have questions?
Yeah, was there a particular item we could clarify? That was fast.
John, I think one's been there forever. I, brought up Brick Streets, and they're looking at cost of how to take them out and pavement. But I'd love to have maybe, I think we tried to set up something with City of Amarillo on some minor, how we can handle some minor repairs. But that's something that's been on.
We have, and I failed in my attempts to have that set up. I was unable to coordinate the dates with us. Dan, that ball is in Dan's court, and Dan has struggled getting coordination for that meeting also. But we have been attempting to get those.
We've made some efforts on our end.
Yes.
We'll continue
to do that.
Another one you throw out too, I think the CIP is just huge to be able to see the whole pie, as we've got some big dollar ticket items, and instead of just seeing one piece of the pie, to see the
We have 71, 72 projects
Yes.
right now, and I haven't even touched it yet.
No, and they're growing.
It's growing. It's going to be
Well,
probably 100 to 125 projects.
But that's what it should be. It should be everything, because, for us as a staff, it becomes complicated when we see shiny things. All of a sudden, that's the new shiny thing. We've got to go over there and take care of that issue or this issue. If we can get all those shiny things kind of in one stack, other than a crisis, we ought to know where we're trying to go and what we're trying to do, and we hope that'll help guide us to
Future commissions.
December, January, is that what I was seeing here?
We hope to receive them from everyone, and we'll be working through those.
By the end of this calendar year,
we'll be getting them to y'all.
Subdivision regulations kind of fire right now, and then CIP's right behind it, on my personal.
And as Joe closes out the year, we begin to see, okay, what did this past fiscal year look like? What kind of funds do we have that are going to be rolling in there? And then we'll push all that together.
On the implementation side, Joel's got the funds set up. We need to do some software that we have. We need to have it implemented, and we'll have some project accounting, open up those funds so we can detail those projects in our software. So there's multiple facets of this moving at once. I'm hoping to have our list done. Did we say what, by December? Project listing, I think, is what that's our goal. So we need more staff conversations.
What else?
Lots of great progress, Commissioner.
Good job. Thank you. Thank you.
Do we need any action?
No, sir. Action. No, it's just an annual update.
All right, takes us to item number 11, presentation from city engineer updating status of current public works projects. Bill?
I told him that he could not be as boring as Dwight was the last time we got up.
I made my list go short, and then you made it double.
He forgot a
I
couple
can verify that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, the list is on the screen. I'll just go through it one by one. If you guys want to stop me, ask any questions, feel free. I'll just do a quick update on where we're at on them. As far as the main items, the pro rata ordinance, I think Chuck's going to get me Dan on some of that, but I think we're complete.
Ordinance is done. These guys are going to work on a contract for CISD.
The capital improvements program, that's work in progress, will be the ones helping you get estimates and kind of help prioritize your project. The drainage review process, improvement and accountability, Freeze and Nichols is working to do like the process on that. We're doing a joint venture with them to help in that process. Ultimately, the hope is they'll have that process set up and we'll be the ones implementing that with, you know, new development.
Checklist, timelines, things like that.
Yeah. Utility extensions for development east of Canyon. We've been talking about this for the last couple months, you guys. We just did the last meeting, I think, or the meeting before that. So we're still evaluating options, looking at costs to run utilities out to the east, and see what works there. Gave you guys that report, and then we went into a lot of detail, but any questions you have about that, email, give me a call, kind of figure that out. Pre-construction and construction project representation for new development. We're going to be doing basically the RPR representative work on the construction of the new development. So we'll be the city's representative doing construction to ensure that everything's done in accordance to the design engineer's plan. And that way, the end result will be you get a better product in the end, hopefully. That's the plan that it'll get constructed right. We'll be your eyes and ears out on the field.
We just implemented pre-construction checklist that went out today officially.
Yep. The hazard mitigation grant application, we're working with Freeze and Nichols. We started filling out the application. What we're doing now is going to get the application maps. We're going to get with Danny to identify what a lot of the items we need to show on those maps for the application, and I think we'll have that up pretty soon. I think the deadline for that application is early next month.
Yeah, November 11th. $200,000 project.
Yeah. And what we hope to get out of that is we want to establish a utility, a drainage utility, do a master drainage plan, and that'll help a lot with future developments too. The utility base map updates, like Joe said earlier, we've been authorized to update your utility base maps. We're working with Chris and Dan on that. We're starting that. I think they reached out to you today on some of that. So we'll be updating all your utility maps. The SPC control network, and what that is going to be a centralized network for your elevations, so that when somebody comes in for construction or designing something, they can check in on your own coordinate based on the state plane coordinate, and that way it'll line up a lot easier with the coordinate. Like, now that you guys have your own set of equipment, Chris can check in on it a lot easier. I don't know if that's going to be very popular with other construction and engineering firms. I don't know if you
It's
can
happening.
put that here. It won't be popular, but I think it'll serve a benefit to the city.
Why is the space over there?
Because he knows it's not popular.
Yeah. Then the wastewater treatment plant permit renewal, that permit, we sent it to TCQ, I believe, June of last year, and TCQ is way behind. They have not issued your permit yet. It's been over a year. Their goal, they tell me they want to have them issued within 300 days, and it's been over a year, so I don't know when that's going to get issued.
Are we having good results out there?
I believe it's going well.
John?
Yes. Ponds are looking great, our BODs are low, our last one was 76, well below our permit limit of 100.
Advisement on establishing asset management system, so we'll help kind of assess like the life cycle and condition of your
Kind of what we talked about earlier.
Mostly paving that thing. The American Rescue Plan Fund projects, we've been having some input on what you could apply those funds to. It's gone back and forth on projects we thought we could apply to, it'll apply to, and then it doesn't. So we'll give our input on what else city can use that. As far as new developments go, Crestview Estates, we're in the drainage review process. We reviewed them, we got a comment to the engineer, I think a little over a week ago, and we're waiting to hear back responses, but we have been working back and forth over the phone and through emails, so that's making progress. Also on I-27, we sent out comments to them on their drainage review, and we were looking at some TxDOT information because they plan to use a lot of the TxDOT right away to drain into, and now that we received that information today, and so we're able to send them more information, and I think it'll work out pretty well. It'll make it better with them. The also on 15th Street, we sent our comments to them, and that one's pretty straightforward. They're going to rebuild the same spot, use that additional lot, and that one should get going forward pretty construction project there. under the state unit 2. The drainage review stuff and construction review, Dan took care of that, but we're going to be doing the construction phase services, as I mentioned earlier, so we'll be out there when construction starts with a checklist and make sure that everything goes well on the construction site. Stone Creek, we had their pre-drainage meeting and some of the drainage review. We've been working with Dustin on that one. The Lost, we had a meeting about how they can get water and sewer. We gave them some options. I think they like some of those options better than others, and so they're gonna go forward with what will work for them to have water and sewer to serve their apartment complex. Capital projects under construction. The AMI water meters, that I believe finished last week. Contractors put in all the meters that they were contracted to put in. I don't know that that's online yet, but as far as the labor of the meters goes, that's done. We haven't closed the job out because we haven't received their final pay request yet. Hunsley Road drainage. As you know, they already know they hit the fiber optic company hit a water line up there and caused a water line to break and silted in with the work that was done. So they've got that fixed now. They've got the silt at the bottom of that drainage channel. They're cleaning that out, and they're also cleaning out all of the debris and silt in the culverts across Hunsley Boulevard towards Walmart. So they're redoing work. As far as any additional rain, we haven't had a lot of rain with that water leak. The little rain we did have started to erode around the concrete flume that was constructed. The contractor is going to put in some flow fill to stop that from continuing, and then also to fill in those gaps under the concrete so it won't be an issue in the future. And they're going to start putting some rock in so that if it rains again, it won't wash out and undermine that anymore. So that's the plan on that one. The Spring Canyon water well 38 over by the new elementary school. All the work's basically done. What's left to do is the startup. They need to do a splash pad for the blow off when they do their startup. But all the work on site, on the school site, is done. They've made it all the way out to the drainage ditch, so the school wants to go start it, start irrigating, do what they need to. They're no longer in their way. And that should be done here pretty soon. I'll reach out to the
So the school was irrigated, I thought that's what.
No, I mean, the school will irrigate around it.
Okay.
Because it's all grassy area and, you know, playground and all that. But they don't have to worry about construction equipment out on their site anymore.
There's already grass on it.
Yeah, okay, so they're already, so it shouldn't be messed up anymore. Maybe the ditch, but the ditch is on the right way, not there. Upcoming capital projects. So there's been talk of the Spring Canyon well 39, 40, 41, and the transmission line that will take that water out to the Timber pump station. We started work on that. We started laying that out. We still need to figure out the well location, but the main obstacle is the funding. So we were under the impression that funding was from the ARPA fund was going to be applicable to that, but it wasn't, so we're kind of on hold until we know what we can do to fund that project. Same goes for the force main replacement from the main lift station to the wastewater treatment plant. That one's partially funded. We just want to make sure that we got it funded correctly and we can explore which avenue we want to follow on that one for how we want to replace that force main. There's a couple options.
And we can use ARPA for that.
Yes, because that's what we see. We're not increasing capacity. Sewer line replacement over on by the Louisiana School on 8th and 9th. This job was bid delayed until last summer, or not last summer, the summer 2020. It was bid, and then we were going to do the work on summer 2021. But there had the contractor was also doing several other projects for the city, and because of certain delays, they did not get around to doing the construction before school starts. If you can imagine trying to go out and replace all the sewer lines while school is going on and parents pick up their kids, with construction all around the school, it made it difficult. So we decided to push that back until next summer. So about 2 years behind as far as construction goes. We have ensured that we've done a change order and locked in that the price is staying the same. It just pushes back the completion date. So it wouldn't affect anything cost-wise, the timing that's going on. And then your CDBG project we applied for, replacement of water and sewer lines on 7th, 8th, and 9th Avenue. Appears like it's going to get funded. You should be getting a contract with TDA sometime soon. Once you get that contract, we'll step in and get a contract to proceed forward. Right now, the timelines with CDA are all off. Normally, they would award in November, December month. You can have the project ready for bid in the summer and construction can take place. Right now, it's up in the air when they get around to it, which makes it difficult with certain construction projects not being able to go on in the winter, or it throws off everyone's schedules, but it does appear that you're going to get funded. And then we have unfunded capital projects. So utility extensions for development East Canyon, that's something that we figure out how to fund if we choose to provide services out that direction. The Section 4 Block 1 well field, we are in the process of acquiring water rights, and so we want to know if there's funding to then run water or sewer out that way to that section. And then 18th Street paving for Hyner Park, that's partially funded. Not quite, once they hit their goal, I believe we can do that too.
45% funded.
Yeah, per day. And items on the horizon, the canyon construction specifications, we need to update those. That's something to think about. The canyon stormwater manual, I'm gonna call it.
Did you really call it?
Not the Amarillo stormwater manual. So if there's throwing out there, there's the storm criteria manual that City of Amarillo uses. Maybe Canyon can do their own if City of Amarillo takes too long to ever update theirs.
Getting closer in our mind every day. My question to you is, if we did our own, would that clear up a significant amount of the issues that we have in the drainage reviews?
I think it cleared up a lot of it,
The ambiguity and uncertainties.
And so I think it'll make the process a little smoother. And I think that if you choose to do your own, I think Randall County would adopt it. And so then EPA, everything's a little smoother.
Ideally, from our standpoint, we'd like to do Amarillo's, but that could be 5 years from
Yeah,
now.
we've been asking for years when they didn't update theirs. We actually kind of started doing it on behalf of a while back. And they said they were going to do theirs, and that never happened. Just something to think about. The pavement grading.
I have asked Adolfo to give me a timeline and dollar amount of what that would cost, so we can at least look at it. He and I, Dan, we've had lots of conversations that would hopefully clear some things up. That's 90% of the development issues back and forth are regarding drainage, and some of it's because of the ambivalence in the current.
And then also just to update it, because a lot of the information, that criteria manual is from 1992 or 3, so we need to update a lot of the information in it.
Electoral records, that was just the other day, 1992 was.
8 years old. So, pavement grade index study. We've been in contact with a company that can come out and do the assessment, but they have a special scanning machine to drive all your roads and kind of give you an idea of what your condition of your pavement is. And that might be something considered for your asset management. Water and wastewater as well, and get an idea of what the condition of your water sewer lines are, and where they are, what size.
2017 studies.
They might be 15, 17, something like that.
Yeah, our studies that we have.
Might need to update those, and then also through your water supply and wastewater capacity studies. So make sure you know where you're at on your capacity, because there's been so much growth since the studies were last done that you might be inching in on needing more. And I know you're getting there really close with water as far as elevated storage and the grass. Streets are always probably come up with it. So that's something that we want to live more. That's another thing. Alright, so that's, I think, everything. Hope that wasn't too long. Do you have any questions on it?
That's why it is. You work for other cities too, Oklahoma.
Yeah, I try if you let me.
Can you go back to that one issue that the development engineers don't like, find it?
Yes.
Tell me why they don't like it.
That's I can tell you why you won't like it. What it is if we set up several points at quadrants in town where you can check in for surveying your work or for setting up a project, the city has their own coordinates, and you go check in, that the city can check in, and then so when they send their projects, it all just pops in where it needs to be for our coordinates. The problem with that they don't like is that it's an extra step, is that they don't feel that's necessary, because they use the same state plane coordinates. It just may not, they don't check in on our point, they check in on their own point that they set up, and that kind of, is that kind of part of the problem there?
I'd frame it differently, that if you want to create your own coordinate system, create your own coordinate system, just don't call it state plane coordinates. Because state plane moves.
Yeah, so it's...
And the state is getting ready to update their state planes and increase the number of state planes in the state of Texas by more than 50. So depending on what kind of model, I mean, it's real technical, there's a GeoID model inside your GPS. Depending on what GeoID model you have, you can set up on the same point that, I can set up on the same point that Adolfo has, and it'll be different location.
Right.
If you want to have your own coordinate system, have your own coordinate system. Just don't call it state plane coordinates.
Right, so you make yours, we say state plane coordinates, that's what we're based on now, but really then it would be your own...
Can't.
Yeah, the canyon coordinate system. So then it would always be that elevation, for as long as we keep it that elevation, it won't change where the state plane changes.
The challenge with that is, for floodplain guys, everything in floodplain has to be on that state plane at that time. So now you're dealing with two separate coordinate systems, and it gets very complicated.
Yeah, then they have to adjust it on their end. So there's extra steps in there, that's why it's not a popular thing to do. But it offers the benefits to the city of then you know everything is checked in and it's going to be adjusted to your coordinate system, you know what those elevations are going to be. And we run into this issue a lot, like with WT, who has their own coordinate that you have to go check in on, and it might be a foot. Things like that happen, so if you have your own system, then you can check on it wherever.
Right now, we're using the state's coordinate system.
Yeah, we'll use like USGS or TempStat.
We will, but, you know, I think we're still, we're trying to work with development with that as well, you know, when we set elevations, more or less the development engineer sets elevations for housing and such.
Or are they using the state coordinate separate?
They're using their own, aren't you, Dustin, on our mapping?
On ours, for elevation, yes, we're using NAVD, but for horizontal, we're not. We're not tying the state plane, unless it's a project that involves floodplain issues. If it's a floodplain issue and it's got to be sent to FEMA, it has to be on a state plane coordinate system. Correct.
So when they send it to you,
Yeah, so if they send it and it says the finished floor on the house or the floor line on the street is 86 or 36.21.5, they might actually on our, you know, we have on our maps to be a foot lower than that, and so we always have to check to make sure if it ties in to our stuff, we have to cross-reference. So it's an extra step on our end and y'all's end on that, but if they do it to our coordinate system, then it should always come into the elevation we know to be correct for us.
We're keeping these utility maps for maintenance and ongoing, you know, we have to keep those, and sometimes you do something now, 5-10 years later, we may not remember that, it may be.
Yeah, so like if a sewer line manhole, like if the inward elevation is shown to be a certain elevation, and we didn't remember that it was adjusted, or needs to be adjusted to a certain coordinate system, and we come back later and we want to make sure that we can tie to that, and it's off, then until we go and review it, we might actually not hit that manhole like we thought we would. We might go under it or something. It's cross-referencing that makes it difficult over time, but.
So this is probably way too much in the weeds for
Yeah, I'll think about it some more.
but what's the disadvantage of using the state system and for everybody using that?
Well, it goes kind of what Dustin said, it changes on a regular basis. I mean, what's the frequency on that, Dustin, you remember?
I mean,
Y'all watch that more than we do.
the challenge with GPS in general is it changes day to day. You know, it can be a difference of how many satellites you're tracking, how many solar flares are occurring that particular day, and state plane starts moving around. I mean, you could be, I don't know what you guys are seeing on Adolfo. It's usually not a whole lot, but
yeah,
it can tend to vary. And then as the vertical data, additionally, you're either on 29 datum or 88 datum. Well, the difference between the two is about 1.7 feet. So it gets very difficult to coordinate all these different datums and to try to make them correlate. If you can, it's great. If you can get it all into one system, I'm with Adolfo. If you can get it all into one system, it's great, but over time, my opinion, it just doesn't work.
Too frequent change, I think, is probably all of our apprehension on that.
We're just not starting to look into that. We'll start, getting some data on what that'll look like. And I think it would benefit to have open discussion like this with other engineers to see what they think. Because ultimately, they're going to be the ones that have to deal with it more than really benefit, you guys and stuff. And so you also have to make sure that it's going to be followed by everyone who's going to be constructed around it.
Any other questions? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Don't go too far. You're next.
Yeah, that's my next one. Okay.
Okay, should be to item number 12, consider and take appropriate action on city engineer contract. Go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did most of these changes. Most of these are not very substantive. I just made a lot more detail on these. The big things are the new development fees, and I really detailed out their development services. We've, at the Commission's desire, administration's desire, we have tried to bridge the gap on making developments analysis and reviews to run smoother with the engineer and our development partners. And you can see the track changes that I have put into here. Most of those are occurring. You can see the new development fee on the schedule of fees. Most of those are under Article 2, New Development Services, is a new article that is on page 3 of 8 of the contract. One of the items, one of the big things that this commission wanted was direct communications in all forms with developers, engineers, and development contractors. I think it's highlighted pretty clear that that's what we want. Attending coordination meetings, we're working really hard at coordinating more and more. We're doing those incumbencies of city engineers, which basically, and then I go into the phase development of drainage review and flood review, if flood review is applicable, construction plan review and associated activities, and then phase services that Dolphin mentioned earlier, construction inspection and quality control. So I detailed those out significantly to highlight those processes a lot more, and I added that. Being that we're doing a lot more grants, we're really proactive on that. I added the section on that on project and planning services and detailed those on page 4 of 8. Just ongoing plans that we have going. So those are the big changes I put in there. Some other ones, they can represent us as a board and various committees, and they do that when necessary.
Yeah, then like quarterly update to you guys.
There was quarterly update to you guys. There was one y'all really wanted, and he did his first. Not as dry as Dwight, so we'll still work on it, but
long comes you can get, so not how much dry you can go.
We'll continue to format, it's an organic relationship with the engineers, Public Works, myself, Danny, Chuck, even all of us, work really well. Adolfo's talked about all those projects, but your city staff is in those projects just like they are, so we're all working together on that. Quarterly updates on those as we move forward, especially. But other than that, I think that's it. No real performance-based changes or anything like this. This is all just cleanup work in my mind. So, anybody have any additional questions? Adolfo didn't have much issues with any of this. Most of what I did was just expanded services that were already there. I just detailed services that were there to the nth degree. Yeah. I can see that. Yeah. I can see it.
second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you.
Good job, Malcolm.
All right, item number 13 is consider and take appropriate action on resolution number 38-2021, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Canyon, Texas, establishing a special revenue fund known as Local Truancy Prevention and Coercion Fund and other matters properly relating thereto. Joe?
As you recall, back in February, the commission adopted a resolution to designate a juvenile case manager for the Canyon Municipal Court. Municipal Court is allowed to collect a number of different fees by the Texas legislature, one of which is this local truancy prevention and diversion fee. However, that fee has to be accounted for in a separate fund. With the establishment of that position, that fee began to be collected with cases in January. So those fees have been accumulating, but we haven't spent any of those fees yet. This resolution today is to provide for the establishment of that fund and segregation of those accumulated revenues, and then we'll account for the expenditure of those in that fund going self-balancing special revenue fund to have its own chart of accounts. If you recall the audited financial statement factually back, there's the 12 to 14 column 2-page presentation of all these separate funds, and this will be one of those type funds. Do you have any questions on that? This is in accordance with the state
Local government code.
Local government code. Okay.
I'll move we approve resolution number 38-20.
Second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the motion, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Joe. All right, then that takes us to item number 14. Consider and take appropriate action on resolution number 39-2021, a resolution of the City of Canyon, Texas, setting a date, time, and place for public hearings and providing for notice of public hearings in regard to the proposed annexation of property within the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the City of Canyon at the request of Bent Creek LLC, a Texas limited liability company, acting by and through its duly authorized member, Stanley H. Ware. Chuck?
Thank you, Mayor. I am formally presenting you with a petition for landowner petition for voluntary annexation of property owned by Bent Creek LLC, a Texas limited liability company. It's been signed by Mr. Stanley H. Ware, who's here today with us. The anticipation is this is the first step in development of the projects known as the lots. The annexation of these two tracts of land, there is a site plan that's not really blown up too well, but there's a site plan attached right behind the legal description that outlines, kind of what the property layout is going to be. This company has been working with, this limited partnership has been working with the development review team and holding some meetings concerning what their plans are, their future plans are with regard to this property. Dan Reese, our Director of Public Works, has also contributed a municipal plan of service that's attached to your petition as Exhibit B, kind of outlining what the municipal plan of service will be. The next step in this process for annexation will be the adoption of a calendar regarding the annexation, which is also in your agenda packet. We anticipate we can make, the desire of the developer was to try to get this done in 2021. The law does permit us to hold two public hearings under separate agenda items on the same day. Therefore, we anticipate the publication of notice of public hearings and public hearings to be November 1st for this annexation. The notice will run this Thursday in the county.
Actually, today's the adopt calendar, correct, Chuck?
Today is the adoption of the calendar, yes. If there are no questions, if there are any questions, I can answer the ones relating to annexation. Danny can probably give you an overview of what the development looks like from the developer standpoint as articulated to the planning department. And Mr. Ware may want to make comments. I don't know if Mr. Ware wants to comment or not. So. Annexation calendar, we'll initiate the annexation proceeding as of today. We anticipate publication notice 21st. And the annexation calendar will be posted on the City of Canyon Internet website. I'll also mail notice, certified mail to other governmental entities that will be potentially effective in the annexation. October 29th, we'll post notice under the Texas Open Meetings Act and hold the public hearings on November 1st. By holding both public hearings on the same day, we were able to stay with our regular meeting schedule and not have to schedule a special meeting.
Steve or Dane, the commission probably would be interested in just a brief overview of the stuff.
Sally may be here. Is Sally here?
Sally's not here.
Sally's not here. It's a 72 unit, I believe it's a 3-story complex. You guys remember adopting this resolution months back in support of that tax credit. It'll be some low income housing. It'll be, if you remember a few years back, in 2017, we annexed the property just south of the cap. And that there's a pad built out there. That area, 6-acre tract south of cap, was for a skilled nursing facility. And they ran into some issues with new federal bond requirements that has put that on hold. I don't know if that's ever going to move forward or not. This property would be just south and contiguous to that property. It's a 4.5 acre tract, Chuck, I believe that's
Yeah,
right.
4.6 or something like that.
We would have them extend 17th Avenue from Highway 7 for the primary access to get to this property. Water is available. Looks like at this point the discussion is they would have a private lift station on site, and it would pump to a 6-inch sewer line in the 13th Avenue, 21st Street area, somewhere in that area. The city would maintain that course main, but that would be their private lift station, or as I would call it, a grinder pump for these 72 units. We'd also have
would be approved by engineer or something.
Correct. A lot of this is still under design process, drainage studies and all civil and design. We would also have them, it wouldn't be annexed, but there would be a right-of-way dedication for extending 18th Street, I believe, where we landed, Joe. So we would have 2 means of access, and the code requires them to have 1 means of access with 72 units. But for future planning aspects, there would be a right-of-way dedication, not in the city limits, but it would be dedicated through this plat with a north-south dedication for 18th Street, as you can see there.
That would be that 0.28 acre tract plan.
Correct.
On the west side.
We're really under the gun to get a lot of this stuff done just as quickly as possible by the end of the year. I believe the petition did get signed, everything's been submitted, but.
Yes, I have the signed petition.
Pretty good design, but you can see up there a basic site plan at this point, what that's gonna look like.
This is the same type of project the Creekside was.
Creekside, I would say it's similar. It's not. I don't believe it was a tax credit, but it was. Creekside was originally developed as a senior living facility. Now, as time has gone by, I think it's become. They had to maintain a minimum number of senior living, but it's also lower income. But yeah, I would say it was comparable, in my opinion.
All right, any other questions?
Mayor, I don't see any issues with the annexation as we have it before us now. So it's up to the commission to proceed with it. That vote will be to adopt the resolution for the annexation calendar.
I'll make a motion we adopt resolution 39, 2021.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. All right, with that, that takes us to the end of our agenda. However, we did not finish some of the things in our exec session. So we have some sessions that take place back there still. So at this point, we will adjourn again into our exec session.
Hey, man. On a wagon. That's okay.